I want to add more. I am registered on Russian platforms like VK, and I am not interested in the position/opinion of the services like SRI, SIE, FBI, or CIA who worked with the pimp Plotnyuk and who also took bribes from him and those from SRI, including the former director George Meyer. Plotnyuk also provided girls in Moldovan hotels with whom he filmed, and everyone in Moldova knows what Plotnyuk was doing with compromising material. 3. It is obvious that the Romanian/Moldovan security, undercover activists, try to insert their individuals everywhere, and some even brag about my analyses that they are theirs even if they have educations as waiters/cooks/millers etc. And they are illiterate. If George Meyer, the former director of the Romanian Information Services, was controlled by Plotnyuk with compromising materials, the girls that Plotnyuk made available to George Meyer in hotels in Moldova, it means that he was/is also controlled by the Russians. Plotnyuk controlled and blackmailed them and most often paid them to perform his services. Why Moldova has a general mobilization and a professional army. Update/February 14, 2022. When you look at the veterans of the Dniester War and how they humiliate them, all the governments from 1992 to the present are simply ashamed. The war veteran who fought for territorial integrity in 1992 and was forced to sleep at the station describes our attitude toward veterans. We are a miserable nation if we cannot ensure a decent living for veterans who have fought for territorial integrity. Through such an attitude, the Moldovan authorities 3. https://www.youtube.com/watch?? V = 0 GB_P4UFQ are also giving a lesson to the younger generation. Regarding the situation in Ukraine, I wrote a message today on Facebook. After the UK, Germany, the USA, Russia withdraw their citizens from Ukraine, after the Ukrainian oligarchs left Ukraine by charter planes, there is a need for a general mobilization of the citizens of Moldova. I would volunteer for the Moldovan army, only if Popescu, Brian, and Stefan Tibuliak are dismissed. Tibuliak won without participating in the contest organized by the presidency. In the position of head of the Service of the Supreme Security Council, and to be replaced by Moldovan soldiers who participated in NATO military operations in Iraq. I am a citizen of Moldova and I love my country, but I do not want people who came to office as a result of political intrigues to tell me what to do. I am curious if those who shout from morning till night that they are Romanians would join as volunteers in the fight against Russia who want to attack the territorial integrity of Ukraine or Moldova. The situation in the Army of the Republic of Moldova is simply disastrous. When you don't have a decent salary, a decent pension, you understand that everything on which the Moldovan army is based is the patriotism of the Moldovan military for this country. If the Russians invade Ukraine and get close to the Dniester, who do you think will be the first to flee the country? Obviously, those who stole Moldova and have bank accounts abroad. The same thing is happening in Ukraine. I am ready to take risks for this country, but I want to be led by Moldovan soldiers who participated in NATO military operations. I do not want the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who jumps like a goat in front of Lavrov, to lead one of the most important ministries in the government of the Republic of Moldova during the war with the Russians. Nicu Popescu holds a degree in political science, international relations, Moscow State University of International Relations, Russia, 1998 to 2002. Or this individual like Tibuliak, and I don't even have to say anything about Brian because everything is known about him. Usually when it comes to taking money from one side and putting it in another, the salaries of teachers, doctors, and other socially vulnerable groups are cut. We are in a war situation and Moldova has only two solutions: to borrow from the outside or to amnesty the people who stole from Moldova's budget only on condition that they make voluntary donations so that the Moldovan government can buy weapons and so that the Moldovan military together with their partners from NATO member countries can train an army in record time. Let's say for a moment that the Russians will not invade Ukraine, Is there a need for such a professional army? Yes. Regardless of any scenario, the Republic of Moldova needs a professional army. In December 2015, I wrote a letter to the President of Romania and the Ministry of National Defense of Romania requesting that the Romanian army be mobilized to defend the territorial integrity of the Republic of Moldova. The first thing that alarmed me was, Năstase, Iosătai and Dodon are protesting, but does Sturza want to be Prime Minister? I mean, these people are sitting and freezing outside, but does Sturza want to be Prime Minister? What if Sturza were to be elected Prime Minister, which was to be the reaction of Dodon and Iosătai? I can tell you what the reaction of the Kremlin and the pro-Russians in Moldova would be. Sturza is considered a successful person in Romania, and the message they were to send to Moldovans/Russians through Russian propaganda, Sturza is a Romanian nationalist. Let us not forget that the main propaganda message used by the Russians for the occupation of Crimea and the separatist regions of Ukraine was Ukrainian nationalism. Diplomacy is a useless thing in front of the Russians. If you want the Russians to give up the attack, then they need to know that instead of winning they could lose everything and most importantly get beaten up. When the Russians attack Ukraine, the Romanian army must be prepared to cross the Prut to defend the territorial integrity of the Republic of Moldova. Obviously they will have to stop on the Dniester. Romania is a NATO member and Romania has US protection. The Russians will not dare to attack an army that is a member of NATO. Ion Sturza is a Moldovan politician and businessman who served as Prime Minister of Moldova from February 19 to November 12, 1999. In 1999, Chertoka Nicolae was advisor to the Prime Minister of the Republic of Moldova, Ion Sturza. Did Ion Sturza know that Nicolae Chertoka was one of the 47 Russian spies from the USSR embassy in Paris who were expelled from France in 1983? Of course Ion Sturza knew about this. But in 1999, no Moldovan politician had as an agenda the integration of Moldova into Euro-Atlantic structures such as NATO or the EU. Only in 2004 some Moldovan politicians started talking about Moldova's integration into the EU and NATO after Romania became a NATO member. Only in 2004 some Moldovan politicians started talking about Moldova's integration into the EU and NATO after Romania became a NATO member. I supported the ACUM, now, Bloc, Action and Solidarity Party and Platform Dignity and Truth, until June 2019, I also wrote an article, 9 Reasons Not to Support the ACUM Bloc. Even now I am not enthusiastic about the current leadership of the Republic of Moldova, but at key moments for the Republic of Moldova we need to unite around a leader, and at the moment it is only Maia Sandu and men who want to attack at this essential moment the supreme commander of the Moldovan army or hide behind his wife's skirt is your right. Men who do not want to defend their mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters have no moral right to call themselves men. With best regards, Plop Andrei. Update/February 19, 2022. If the Ukrainians will try at least some resistance against the Russians, the Moldovans are still making no preparations to resist. How stupid you must be that the Russians will leave Moldova alone. Moldova has a government full of fools and cowards who can't even read from the paper, and even if they read, they don't understand what they are reading. These idiots are doing nothing to protect Moldova. Update February 22, 2022. After yesterday, I noticed that the Russian bitches from Moldova, Romania, and Poland are in a panic. These Russian bitches are like hyenas, they are afraid to fight one by one with the lion. These hyenas are strong if there are several against one. I wrote that the Russians recruited most of my friends and that the Poles, the Romanians took bribes from the Russians and they are now Russian bitches. I think I do not need to write again that all without exception that it is clear, the truth is coming to the surface, and I have already informed the whole international community, and that's why these Russian bitches are panicking. Before I tell you what happened yesterday in Chisinau, February 21, 2022, I want to tell you about an event that took place many years ago. I have lived in the village of Porembeni since I was 3 years old. We moved here from Chisinau and lived for a while in a Soviet-style building. When we were kids we didn't have the technologies that today's kids have, and one of our traditions was to get together at the horizontal bar, also called the high bar, and next to the horizontal bar there was a field where we played football. Church is being built here today. Even though I later moved into the house, I still kept the tradition at that time. It was around 2005 when I met a person who was practicing Taekwondo. He was a person who moved to Porembeni from another village. Also in 2005 I started practicing Taekwondo. Igor Mokino trained in Taekwondo for the second year and I just started. I started practicing Taekwondo in Chisinau, where it is 12 kilometers from the village of Porembeni. In October or November 2005, on a Friday, we, Igor Mokino and I, were returning from Taekwondo training and we decided to stop at the bar/cafe in Varsary. We were sitting at one table and 3 people were sitting at another table. One of these 3 was a former classmate of Igor's from the school in Craiova where Igor studied, but because Igor was hit in the head with chair from Vadim Mustita, Igor's parents decided to transfer him to the school in Magdasesti. The fact that he was humiliated at school left him with complexes for the rest of his life. Vadim and 2 of his friends went out and were waiting for us. They had something to fix and we all came to the conclusion that they are fighting with each other, Igor Mokino with Vadim, but no one needs to get involved. They started fighting, but tutor son Gurov, Fagia, began to beat Igor. I also intervened and I was fighting with this tutor, and there was another gypsy, third person, who was starting fight with me. Igor fought with Vadim even though they were the same size, and I was fighting tutor and the gypsy even though they were both taller than me by a head. These 2 individuals I was fighting with received blows from me, but I also received blows. I was fighting these 2 individuals on one side and Igor and Vadim on the other side. At which Igor Mokino ran away and left me alone against 3 people. I saw him run away and leave me alone. If he didn't run away, we would beat them all 3. I managed to escape for myself, I had no choice. He left me alone and ran away. Igor ran home to his house. I think the distance between the bar/cafe and the Soviet-style building where he lived was a distance of 950 meters. Igor Mokino returned with his father to the bar in Varsary, but when they arrived no one was there, and if I weren't there to escape, until Igor and his father arrived, I was going to be with broken ribs, a broken nose, a broken head. I returned home and took the knife and I wanted to go to the ravine that separates the village of Porembeni with Craiova, because Vadim was from Craiova and they usually went to the disco in Magdasesti on Friday. My mother and sister stopped me. I think after an hour, when everything was quiet, Igor and his father came to my house. He apologized then. The next week, in Monday, after the weekend, tutor son Gurov came with a faded eye at school and all his friends asked him, from whom he has a bruised eye? Igor Mokino was so poor that when he married with Iulia in 2009/2010 he could not even have a wedding. He only registered the marriage with the official authorities without even inviting relatives or close friends. Iulia had to marry him just because she got pregnant. They lived only a few years together and divorced, and the child stayed with Iulia. Weddings in Moldova are very big, and usually those who organize the wedding take out all the money they spent for the wedding, and there is still money left for the honeymoon, and some usually buy cars or save money for the apartment. And now, because of the money he received from the Russians, he does his best to destroy other marriages that have rather become a complex because of the poverty that he cannot accept that someone can live happily. Igor Mokino is a good fighter only in the ring, but when it comes to fighting on the street, he runs away, he is simply afraid.